This isn't the way I usually behave. Makes me feel kind of ill. I'm talking non-stop, I've lost my brakes, and I'm running full speed down the hill. And suddenly I feel small inside. I'm so vulnerable. I feel myself falling. I could be falling in love with you.
Hey! Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Francis, and welcome to our Zoom room launch of Niki Smart's new book, Helter Shelter. Hold up book. Yes, hold up book. Here it is. And again, I hope there's a lot of people in America here, but also we hope our South African friends are joining us here now also. They're in the middle of something, they have a quaint tradition there called load shedding. That's where the government siphons off so much money that there's no electricity. So people in Johannesburg are mostly sitting in the dark right now. But hopefully they found a way to get their Wi-Fi going, and they're watching us now. And that includes Gus Silber, who we're going to meet a little bit later. But my name is Stephen Francis, as I said. And if you are from South Africa, you probably know me as the creator of the very popular cartoon strip, Madam Eve. Cue cartoon strip. Where is it? I don't see it, Brown. Okay, well, here's a book available on Amazon, but it's not about me today. It's about Niki Smart. So, I mean, I've written screenplays. I've done a lot of work with Gus Silber, who you're going to be meeting soon. Looks like he's turned into a typewriter up there. I don't know if you can see that. But all right, I want to tell you a little bit about Niki Smart. I've known her for many years. She grew up in South Africa, and then she emigrated to America. She's a singer-songwriter, and she teaches yoga also. She does a mean downward dog. I've seen it for myself. And she started writing screenplays and books when she came to America. And she wrote her first book called Hell Camp, with some very exciting things happening about Hell Camp. You're going to hear about that soon. And she spent 12 years in America being a counselor for troubled teens, which is half about the book. Helter Shelter has a lot of her own personal experiences with trying to find true love, but also a lot about the troubled teens in the shelter, which is very harrowing. I couldn't put the book down. I couldn't even leave the house. Of course, I don't leave the house much anyway because of the virus. But no, seriously, it's a great book. And where's Niki? Can we see Niki Smart? Rowan, where's Niki? Niki.
I'm here.
There you are. Hi, Nick.
It's like magic.
How's it going, babe? This is very exciting. This is my first Zoom co-host. I'm a Zoom virgin. So
I heard you were a Zoom virgin.
Yes, my cherry, babe. So you want to talk a little bit? Well, Gus is going to ask you the serious questions.
Yes.
My friend Gus Silber.
Yes.
Looks like you turned into
I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for the snafu, everyone, because I realized they could all hear us and see us while we were trying to do a real suave entrance, and we didn't quite manage. So.
No, but Bronwyn, my wife Bronwyn, who's producing this this session, started to panic because we couldn't tune in the Zoom, and we realized the cat was sitting on the keyboard, and everything was going crazy. So I picked the cat out. So anyway, so Hell Camp was your first book.
Yes.
And some very exciting things are happening about Hell Camp. You want to talk about that for a bit?
Yes, it is very exciting because, well, actually, your wife, Bronwyn Berry, is involved too, and she has been from the early days. And we've got some other really very cool and talented people coming on board. And we've got a big, prestigious company in South Africa that's backing us. So we're hoping to get the first Memoir Hell Camp made into a film. Woohoo! I can hear everyone cheering. I know you're all cheering.
We had a table read in Los Angeles with a lot of working actors. We can't mention them, but you might recognize some of the names. Actually read the script, and it went over very well.
Yes, it was fantastic. Yes, it was it was just a very moving experience. And even my daughter Samantha got to read a part, which was quite lovely too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, Niki and I know each other for many years. mainly because she is best friends with Bronwyn Berry, who happens to be my wife, and also
and I think you just
she
froze
was
on
in
that.
South Africa in a place called the White Horse Inn, which they converted to a rehab place a few years later, which I spent three weeks in. I don't know why I just mentioned that now, but I did.
Yes.
But hey, but anyway, let's get this moving. It's not about just me and you. It's about you. It's about you and Gus Silber, because he's going to ask the serious questions. Gus, are you there, or are you load shedding at the moment? Gus Silber. Yeah, there he is. Gus. All right. Oh, I didn't introduce you. Gus is a good friend of mine. He's a writer. We're a little competitive, so it kind of kills me to say this. He's very talented. I taught him everything he knows. But he gave me my first job back in Johannesburg many years ago when I was living there. So Gus Silber, he's very well regarded, a great writer, great humanitarian. Take it away, Gus Silber.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I wanted to see your cat, though. I'm really annoyed that you kicked your cat out. But anyway, so Niki,
Hi.
I want to ask you first. I want to ask you first of all. You're an ex-Joburger. I'm a Joburger currently, sitting here in darkness. This doesn't happen all the time. Stephen kind of gives the impression that it's constant, but we kind of get used to it. So I wanted to ask you to what extent you grew up here, and it's a tough place, but it's also a very special place. To what extent do you think your being a South African has stayed with you in all your years in the US? Do you consider yourself still in some ways a South African in the way you see the world?
It's very weird because it's just so deep in your core that I think, and I'm sure that's true for any country you grow up in. You take on that personality of that country. But I can recognize South African people within like 2 or 3 words, and I'm immediately drawn to them, and I want to go and talk to them because there's something familiar about them, and I feel like we speak the same lingo, and you can immediately connect. And there was a lot about my upbringing that I think I really value. I'm very glad that I grew up there, as crazy as it was. So.
Okay. So Niki, listening to your 2 songs at the beginning, I thought they were your songs. I wasn't 100% sure. So I quickly did a Shazam on my watch and it said Falling by Niki Smart. I was, oh, cool. But you really have a lovely voice. Your voice is, those 2 songs in particular, your voice has got a real fragility. And at the same time, there's a kind of a resilience, a strength, especially in that second song, Worth It. And there's a line in that second song, I really feel quite broken. So I just want to ask you, before we get onto your book, to what extent are your songs autobiographical? To what extent are they a memoir?
Yeah, I mean, we chose those 2 songs to play because those were both mentioned in Helter Shelter because it was during my big love affair. First, I wrote the one where I was just falling madly in love with him, and then the one when we broke up, and I felt completely broken. So yes, they were very much just straight out of my heart. It's the way that I work things out. It's my little therapy for myself.
Yeah. So. Okay. So, I mean, music is a very well-known form of therapy, and it does kind of work. Working in the shelter, which is the subject of the Helter Shelter, to what extent were you able to actually, as a youth supervisor, to what extent were you formally or informally able to use music as some kind of form of therapy?
Actually, music was fantastic because it's a real easy way in with a kid that's difficult. I just say, hey, do you want to learn a few chords on the guitar? And I can teach them to play Happy Birthday pretty much, within half an hour because it's only, 2 or 3 chords and it's real easy. And so kids would really respond to that. And we also did a music therapy group where they would choose a song that they wanted, that meant something to them, and then they would tell us why the lyrics spoke to them and that sort of a thing. And it was always, music's kind of a leveling playing. It sort of levels everything because everyone can understand it. We can all communicate, and understand each other through that. So yeah, it's a very good tool to have.
Yeah. Niki, I want to ask you before we move on to Helter Shelter, just briefly sum up Health Camp, which is about your troubled and traumatic upbringing in South Africa. Just briefly take us through it. You grew up in a fairly toxic environment. Just tell us a little bit about the story behind Helter.
Yeah, I think I grew up in a very strange household, but because it was sort of backdropped against a sort of a strange, the whole country was going through quite a warped sort of way, chaotic, and I didn't realize how odd it was till I came to America and started telling stories to American people. They go, "What?" And that made me think, like, start seeing it a little bit differently. And again, it was a very cathartic thing to write, and it was just to get it all out. I wanted to just get everything out, and it really helped get it out on paper, and it kind of took away the emotion of it for me, because now it's just a story, Well, let me hold up the right book. Now it's just a story in a book, and it doesn't, somehow it eases it. So yeah, it was just about my childhood and young adulthood, and coming to terms with my mother, and eventually learning to forgive her and letting it all go.
Okay.
It's lovely.
Okay, so I want to ask you a bit more about that, especially the forgiveness, a bit later. But tell me about coming to America. I mean, America is a place that attracts dreamers. It also attracts refugees. It attracts people who are going through crisis, and it attracts people who are looking for opportunity. When you arrived in America, just tell us a little bit about that. Your daughter was obviously very small then, a baby, or just tell us a little bit about your coming to America experience.
I mean, yes, it was, I think every kid growing up, they see all these American films, and America's like where all the music comes from, all the pop stars live. It just looks so exciting. And of course I wanted to go there, I'm like, I wanted to be a big pop star, and I got to go there. And I didn't think it through very well, because I was young, and people said, you can't go with your toddler, there's no way. And I'm just like, well, I'm going. And so, yeah, it was quite a difficult time. But I'm still very glad that I did it, and I still feel like we've got huge amounts of opportunity here. Yeah, and especially for my daughter too.
Okay. Now, Niki, what drew you to the Crisis Intervention Center? Was it coincidental? Was there a job going? Or was it a calling that you felt you had to pursue? Or was it just that you actually needed a job when you were living in California?
Well, a little bit of all of those, but yeah, I think that it was definitely a calling, because I think when you've gone through your own really difficult, childhood, you want to sort of save others, and you feel like you can help them, and yeah, it becomes very much a calling. So I really wanted that job, so much so that I applied even when I had none of the right qualifications. And I feel very lucky in that the lady that hired me, she gave me a really long interview. I think it was a 2-hour interview, and then she gave me the job, and she said, I'm going to take a chance, let's see how it goes. So
yeah. So tell us what a youth supervisor does in the shelter. What are the boundaries? What can you do and what can't you do?
Well, yeah, there's definitely rules, because we're dealing with very fragile people, and so first of all, touch is a thing. We don't do any physical touch. We can do like a side hug. You can do a high five. You have your appearance. You're not allowed to have any revealing clothing on. We want to emulate for them what we would like them, how we would like them to behave. There's a routine you follow. We have breakfast together, lunch together, dinner together. It's set up like as if we were a really well-functioning family, trying to give the glimpse of what a beautiful, loving family should look like. So there's no swearing, no one's allowed to swear, certain subjects are off limits, and we'll just say, please, we're not, that's not appropriate. So that kind of thing, yeah.
Okay. Now, to what extent, I want to just ask about forgiveness. You talk about forgiveness and your mother and so on. To what extent is this part of crisis intervention, of coming to terms with the people who've abused you, who've been cruel to you, who are the cause of your trouble? Does that come only much later in the intervention process?
I think so. I mean, I don't know. People might move at different speeds, but I know it took me a really long time. And if I was a teenager and you would have been telling me you got to forgive your mom, hell no. I wanted to hate her, and I wanted to hate her for, good and proper for a really long time. So, but I'm sure there's people that can move through it faster. But ultimately, yes, the end point should be forgiveness, because you're just stuck otherwise. You can't move forward in your own life if you're carrying hatred, and you just can't. So
yeah. So going into the shelter, working as a youth supervisor, and the long interview that you spoke about, did your own experiences count as something valuable, or did you have to kind of almost forget about your own upbringing and be objective in what you were doing? In other words, was it a little bit of both? The fact that you yourself grew up as a troubled child?
I mean, I think what the troubled childhood gives you is you really know what you don't want, and you really know how you don't want people to behave. So it gives you quite a clear path into that. So when I had my own daughter, I knew exactly what I didn't want to do for her. I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to do things, but I just knew what I didn't want to do. I can't say I always got it right either, but I did try.
Yeah. Okay. So in other words, you kind of learned from your mother how not to be a mother. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did you yourself kind of counter what your philosophy, especially with a toddler in a strange land? What was your philosophy in kind of being a good parent, the kind of parent that you had hoped that your own mother would be?
Yeah, I missed a little bit of that, but I kind of got it was about Samantha bringing her here as a toddler, and honestly, I wish I'd been more in tune with everything when I was younger. This is my one regret, that I feel like Samantha did not get the best of me when I was, when she was little, because I think it was only when she was about 5 or 6 that I really started to see clearly how much she meant to me and how important she was. But until then, I was still I had her quite young, so I was still quite selfish, and I still really wanted my pop star dream. So I would kind of like shove, where Samantha got sort of shoved, to the side a bit. Yeah, but it was very difficult to come to this country with no support group and just have a toddler. That was very hard. And
yeah,
I did meet some fabulous people who did give me enormous amounts of help, and thank goodness for them. Yeah. Okay,
great. So, Niki, tell us a little bit about your pop star dreams. I mean, in South Africa, you were very well known. You were part of an outfit that had a #1 hit. But South Africa, obviously, is a very small country in terms of its music scene. When you kind of went to the USA, you were obviously going, on one level, you had a good reason to be there with your daughter and so on, but on the other level, you must have had some kind of dream about your musical career. Just tell us a little bit about the evolution of that career going from South Africa to the US, to the home of,
It's a very sad story, really, guys. Because, when I got to South Africa, my head was this big. I was like, I am, here I am, America, embrace me. And of course, no one was interested in me. It didn't matter that I'd had #1 in South Africa. It didn't matter it didn't translate to America. So I kind of started from scratch again. And yeah, it was quite an eye-opener, actually. And I guess it was a healthy one, because it put everything in a healthier perspective for me. And I mean, I got lucky as well. I got lucky because I feel like I've had a really fantastic life through music. I've got to play some fantastic shows, gone on tours. I don't regret a second of it. Oh, you're getting right. Look at you.
The powers come back.
The power just came back.
No, that's not the South African record. I think we had load shedding for half an hour. So thank you for bringing light into my home, Niki. So tell us a little bit about your musical career in the US. You've released a couple of CDs. Are you kind of completely independent artist at the moment?
Yes. Yeah, I did CDs. I did 3 of them. I actually got to work in a recording studio. Thank you, JP. And he taught me how to actually use everything. I sort of was audio engineering. So I started recording stuff and bringing in friends. And so the last CD I did, I actually mixed it all and everything myself, which is probably why it's not so great. But I got a little bit of attention doing commercials, and I got into a few like indie movies and things like that. But honestly, I haven't really done anything in music for close on 7-8 years now. I've really been focused on writing. So.
Okay. Niki, do you see any parallels between the process of writing a book and the process of writing a song? Is it the same kind of exhausting artistic and creative endeavor? Do you use the one as an antidote to the other? How do you see those two forms?
I mean, obviously they're both creative outlets. But yeah, a book takes a very long time, and a song can come out in a few minutes. So I think you have quicker access to your emotions in a song. And I realized that most of my songs were quite sad, whereas when I write quite funny. I always want to make it funny and lighten it up. But in music, somehow that doesn't work so well, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're both just sort of cathartic, creative outlets.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's actually a very good point. I think actually, and I'm personally a fan of downbeat music, melancholy music. I actually found it has the opposite effect. I found it uplifting. Cheerful, happy music kind of just goes through my head. But music that is melancholy and personal and kind of deeply emotional.
That is interesting. Really and I think we need to do a whole therapy session on that one.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that. Yeah. So in this process, one or more teenage girls who kind of struck you as being a version of you? In other words, did you actually see yourself in some of these troubled teens?
Yes, I did. And it's actually not a good thing, because I would really want to save them. I just want to like go in and, can I adopt them? Can I just take them home with me? So it was actually better to have a little bit of distance. To get too emotionally involved in a client it's not healthy, I don't think. But I mean, I just really felt for all of them. I realized I always take the kid's side. I'm like, the parents must be wrong. Whereas I'm not so sure I would have that same frame of mind now, because now, you know, I'm a little way further down the road. I can see there's usually two parts, or, you know, I would have a bit of a more lenient look at the parent nowadays.
Yeah. Did that, Niki, ever bring you into any sort of conflict or trouble at the center? In other words, did you have to sometimes pull yourself back and be more objective and aloof, or were you allowed to kind of have that sort of response when you were dealing with troubled teens? What were those boundaries in your job?
I think you always want to react, you know, calmly. You never, even if you're really hurt or something happens, you don't show it. You can go to the staff office and you can, you know, talk it out with your co-workers, but you don't want the kids to see. At least I didn't. I mean, there was times when I would want to cry and I would have to just go away and cry somewhere else, because it doesn't help them to see me crying. Yeah. So yeah, just to keep a bit of, you have to keep the decorum, right?
Yeah.
To help them.
So your book is yeah, that's great. Your book is subtitled A Memoir of Sorts. I suppose all memoirs are a kind of mixture of what you remember and what you have to kind of reinvent in your head. Yeah. Just tell us what you mean by a memoir of sorts.
Because I made it go linear, but it's not, you know, that I've compressed time to make it fit the through line. And I've also compressed certain events at the shelter, and like maybe, you know, it'll be one person, but it was actually these things happened to 3 different people, but I make it into one person, something like that. Okay. It's not completely accurate, but it's fairly accurate. So that's what I mean. In Hell Camp, everything was pretty much as I could remember, but this I played with the facts just to make it move better and flow better. Yeah.
Okay. So Helter Shelter is about you working at this crisis center, but there's a parallel story woven through it of your relationship with this guy who's a screenwriter and quite a well-off screenwriter, and the ups and downs, the Helter Shelter of your relationship with him. You do include a blurry face picture of this guy as well. So to what extent is he accurately portrayed, and to what extent were you worried about being that candid about this guy? I mean, are you still friends with him? Was it something that you had to kind of negotiate with him, or did you just write it as you saw?
I don't know. He cut me off completely, so I haven't. That was, I haven't seen him in 15 years or something.
Okay.
And no, I didn't. I mean, I haven't used real names for anybody, and well, except my family. But no, I think obviously, and I know this in every heartache, of course, your side is the one you're telling, you know, you're not really being fair to the person, because of course he was lovely too. You know, I feel like I bash him quite badly, but I do say somewhere in the book that, you know, it's just, I know that he's also a good person. And I know that this is, you know, honestly, everything that had happened with him, I could see it was me. It wasn't really him. It was,
yeah,
you know, it's the mirror thing. So,
yeah.
and if I do see him, you know, I just have nothing but love for him, you know, really.
Okay.
And I hope he doesn't, you know, I hope he feels the same.
Okay. So to what extent did your sort of personal life outside of the center kind of factor into the center? In other words, was it ever kind of really difficult for you to carry on working there because you were going through such a tumultuous time with your relationship? Did you have to force yourself to go in there ever? Was it ever a chore for you because what you were going through?
I mean, yes, there were moments that were very difficult. But, for me, actually, the shelter became a safe place for me too. And there were moments where I'd actually feel relieved to walk in the front door, where I'd suddenly feel like, oh, phew, I'm okay now. So, and I mean, I worked there for 18 years, not 12 years. The story takes, is not over 12 years, but it's because I've written it in the past. Anyway, but I was actually there for 18 years. So I went through, several breakups while I was at the shelter. Wow. And I remember always feeling more peaceful when I was at the shelter. So, wow. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Niki, do you think your experience there, that's a long time to work at a shelter. From your experience there, do you think shelters actually work? Do you think that teenagers go out of there as kind of healed people or capable of being healed?
Well, this was a short-term crisis intervention shelter. So it's not a very long, it's only a 3-week program. Okay. So it's very quick. And I think it does fantastic work. I have nothing but admiration for the shelter, because they're dealing, with very fragile and difficult situations. And they just sort of they can put a whole team around one kid and go, how can we best help you at this crisis point? And then they find what is the next step for this person, right? Is it to reunify with a family, or is it to be taken out of the home? And is it to go with another family member, or is it to go into foster care? Like what? So I think the shelter does incredibly important work, and they've actually have three now. So they're expanding, which is great, because there's really not enough services here. It's always full. There's always a waiting list. Yeah.
Yeah. So this particular shelter that you worked at, and shelters in general, just in your knowledge and experience, are they meant in some way to kind of replicate a home? You kind of spoke about functional families and so on. Are they meant to actually make, even in those 3 weeks, the clients feel some sort of home environment?
Absolutely. And you have a bedtime, and everything is like, we make sure that you're going to shower. We make sure that you're going to eat your food. They go on they do exercise. They have like all these different groups during the day. Then they have relaxing time. I mean, I was teaching them yoga. Then they get movies on the weekend. They get outside people coming in and giving talks to them. But it's all done in such a, I feel like the kids are very lucky that make it there. I think they have a very lovely opportunity when they get there to shift themselves, to see what life could actually be, how wonderful it could be, right?
Yeah. And what about the sort of post-shelter experience? To what extent are you also preparing for them to go back to their parents? How does that factor in?
Well, like I said, it's only a 3-week program, so there's not much time to do a lot of work. But yes, we get, you can see the kids that really don't want to go back start acting up again right as their exit date comes. Yeah. And that's it's a sad thing to witness, but I mean, we just give them as best tools we can, and they often have aftercare people coming to their house to check on them and make sure that everything's going okay. So there's that we definitely don't just let them go without a plan in place. There's always a plan in place.
Yeah. And what about the sort of, you obviously weren't involved directly on the clinical side, but you do speak in the book about the kind of drug treatment and so on. What's your feeling about that? What's your feeling about trying to take kids out of crisis and dysfunction using, obviously, kind of prescribed drugs? And from your own kind of experience kind of in ways of coming out of crisis than actually having to have a drug regimen?
Sorry, again, you broke up a bit, but I know you're talking about the, I'm not on board with giving huge doses of anything to kids because, you know, their brains haven't finished forming yet. And some of these drugs, they haven't done long-term testing. And I mean, if it was I wouldn't put my daughter on that. I wouldn't want her on that. But I also know that in some cases, these drugs really help kids. So I would like people to err on the, you know, the side, go less is okay. We don't have to give them these enormous amounts and rather build it up slowly if there's a need, but not start them off. So I mean, some of the kids, honestly, I felt like, and this is a long time ago, so I don't know if they've adjusted this, but they would become little zombies. You know, they were just like, you could tell they were just sort of not there the whole day. And I'm like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
That's not fixing anything. So, yeah.
Cool. So, Niki, I think this might be a good point on our running order for you to, I know there's a passage that you wanted to read from your book for us.
Yeah, I'm going to read you a little bit. I'll read you a little bit from Helter Shelter. So,
cool.
This is from chapter 9, and it's called What Happens in Vegas Doesn't Necessarily Stay in Vegas. And this is when Roy and Roy is the one that I'm fallen so madly in love with. So I'm going to come a little closer because I know I have a soft voice. Anyway, so Roy has booked us into a luxury suite on the top floor of the Venetian, which is a very fancy hotel in Las Vegas. Our room is fabulously decadent with a magnificent view of the Strip. Rule number 1, Roy says, throwing his suitcase on the bed. On arrival in Vegas, it's wild turkey time. I'm like, that's a rule? What is this, heaven? Roy orders 2 shots of wild turkey and we slam them back, both of us grimacing from the afterburn. Rule number 2, in Vegas, Roy shouts happily, there are no rules. Oh, splendiferous gods, thank you. I'm close to paradise because I hate rules and I love drinking. Gazing out at the dazzling wattage that illuminates the Strip, I note a shimmering pool below us. Would you like to go for a swim? I ask Roy. Hell no, he splutters. I'm going to go play a few hands. He's a gambler. A momentary flash of disappointment ripples through me, but I dismiss it. Roy doesn't like to swim. So what? I love it. I suit up and I head for the pool. And what a pool it is. A huge, inviting expanse surrounded by empty chaises longues. And I'm pretty much the only person at the pool because it's 9 p.m. and all the good citizens of Las Vegas are busy smoking, gambling, snorting, drinking, and making whoopee. In other words, they're blowing smoke, blowing their money, doing blow, blowing their minds, and blowing up sperm. Las Vegas blows, baby. Several lengths underwater cool me to the perfect temperature, and once I climb out, there's no need to towel off. Hot winds gust against my skin as if a giant hairdryer is on, and I feel like God himself is gently blow-drying me. Flopping onto my back, I stare up at the stars, and I feel weepy at the wonder of it all. Life is beautiful. I feel exceedingly lucky to be in this very moment. Amazingly, the moment actually amps up because somewhere nearby the Pointer Sisters must have just stepped on stage. And amidst cheers and applause, their soulful voices drift across the pool. And when we kiss, ooh, fire, it's fantastic. My face goes slap happy on me. I can't smile any wider. Pulling out all the stops, the universe then kicks it into high gear as fireworks suddenly erupt above the hotel. I mean, the night sky fills with sparkling intensity. It is stupendous. My whole being lights up. Staring up at the luminous sky, I realize that Roy and I will be spending the night on the top floor, in the penthouse suite, entwined together in luxury, with a view of this magical Vegas night. How fantastically, brilliantly, unfucking believable. I doubt I can get any higher. Compadres, I've hit the zenith. I am high as a kite on life and drunk as a lord on love. This is beyond paradise. This is nirvana. On cue, the lyrics spelt out, I'm so excited and I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control and I think I like it. Yes, sing it, sisters. Yeah, that's the happy part. No, I don't know where everyone else went. Okay. I don't know where you guys are, so maybe I'm going to just sing you a song since you're leaving me here all alone. Whoop. Sorry, that was me. So I'm going to sing a little song that I actually wrote for the shelter. And they used it in sort of a little marketing thing they were doing for head office, just to show them. So this is the shelter song. Give me shelter from the storm. Keep me safe and keep me warm. Teach me how to be strong, so I can find out where I belong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And give me shelter from the night, and help me find a guiding light. Show me how to find grace, so I can put the smile back on my face. Mm-hmm. Ooh. Give me shelter from the night. Keep me safe and keep me warm. Mm-hmm.
That's lovely, Niki.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Okay, now I can see you just.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, cool. Okay. Okay, that's lovely. And that's like a reflection of what we were talking about earlier, of you using music as an autobiographical force. So in the few remaining minutes that we have, first of all, just tell us quickly where people can get A, your book from, and B, your CDs.
Books from Amazon. You can just Google online and it'll come up on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and you can actually go into any bookstore. Well, this is in America, I don't know about South Africa. Mm-hmm. And you can order it. So you can get it from your local bookstore if you like. And then the music, again, just Google it because it's on just about everything. It's on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes. I mean, you can, Niki Smart music, it'll all pop up. So yeah, you can, not the shelter song because I haven't actually put that one out there, but all the other ones, yeah.
Okay. So Niki, just tell us a little bit about your post-shelter life. What have you been doing? What are you currently doing? What are you've spoken about your plans for the Hell Camp movie. How do you kind of keep yourself busy day to day? What's your current workspace?
Well, I just feel very lucky because I'm actually in a lovely little cottage in Laguna Beach, right near the ocean. And I've actually started writing a third book. So I'm working on that right now, and then working on, getting Hell Camp made. And yeah, and now I've got to do some marketing for Helter Shelter. So I feel like I'm pretty busy, and I enjoy all of it. So that's good.
Yeah.
And
so yeah. Niki, in Helter Shelter, you're pretty hard on yourself. It's a very candid and you're very raw. You refer to yourself in one chapter. You almost kind of berate yourself for being an outcast and living in a mobile home and so on. You do it with a lot of wit, so it doesn't come across as self-pity. It comes across as a kind of wry self-awareness. But over the years, since moving to the USA, how have you come to terms with yourself? How have you kind of learned not to be so hard on yourself? Is that partly the yoga, maybe the music? What's your philosophy on not being that hard on yourself?
Thank you for even saying that, because I didn't realize I was being so hard on myself when I was, but now that I'm kind of stopping, and it's not even that I'm stopping, I can laugh at myself really easily because I feel very human. And I like being able to see myself as that, but I'm also being a lot kinder to myself. I feel like I wasn't very kind to myself, and I'm starting to see that and go a little more gentle. And that yes, it's from yoga. Yes, it's from doing a more spiritual sort of side of things. And I'm involved in a spiritual book club, and I'm doing some other sort of groups that are helping me dig into deeper core things. And that's actually what my third book is more about, is like finding that inner essence of what are you, who are you, what makes you tick, and how do you want to impact the world, and all those really big questions, because that's kind of what I wanted. And I feel like, the pandemic, and everyone's got this opportunity to just sort of shut everything down, contract into something a lot smaller, and let's just look inward.
Yeah.
And everyone's getting that chance.
Well, can I take you up on that? It's a tough question for anyone to answer, but you sort of raised it, so let me take you up on it. How do you want to impact the world? What are your hopes and dreams for yourself? What would you like to be remembered for?
This might sound cheesy, but for loving kindness. I mean, I think that we have to learn, especially in this day and age where, I mean, I don't know what it's like in South Africa, but in America, we're obviously it sort of feels like crunch time. And I mean, there's just so much ugliness in the air right now. There's real fear, there's real anxiety, there's a lot of hatred. And it really brings it to the front how much we need love. I feel like, man, we're one. We're all just little humans just trying to have a lovely life. Like, can we not just find some way? But I realize, who knows if that's possible? I mean, if you think about how long we've existed and how many wars we've had, and it's just like, but yeah, my thing is to just try and spread as much joy and love and peace as I can, whatever shape or form that takes. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I must tell you, I mean, we're not alone out here in South Africa in kind of obsessively watching what's going on in America. Yeah. Sometimes with kind of absolute horror, sometimes with this kind of feeling of pity, but we kind of are absolutely like intertwined with everything that's going on there, because we feel that it affects us as well. So as much as is happening in South Africa, we kind of are invested a lot in what's happening there. Yeah. So we've got a couple of questions here, and Mark is asking you to talk about your daily writing practice. That's an interesting question. Just tell me a little bit about how you write, when you write, and maybe it's just some of your kind of philosophy of writing.
I try to write every day during the week. Some weekends I don't really get to it. For some reason, I like to be not in my own place when I write. I like to have gone to a coffee shop or sit somewhere else. I don't know why that is. And this is so bad, but caffeine really helps me. And I stopped drinking caffeine this year, so I've started again, but I drink like really weak coffee. But it's like, I don't know what it is. It helps me. And anyway, and I write for probably 2 to 4 hours a day. And that's not huge. I know some people that write a hell of a lot more. So
And given that your writing is so candid and confessional, who's your first audience? Who do you say to, please have a read of this before you show it to anybody else in the world?
Well, actually, Bronwyn probably. Bronwyn's a real go-to. Okay. My sister's another one. My daughter, she's great. She read through Helter Shelter for me and scratched out whole pages going, I'm so bored, I'm not even reading this. She did a very rough edit, a brutal edit.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a few people that I really trust.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's often said that if you want, that's why I ask you the question, when you have some writing and you want to get an opinion on it, you don't give it to your friends and say, read this. You give it to someone you trust and you say, have a read and tell me what's wrong with it.
Yeah, no,
so what Samantha's doing there is exactly right, actually.
Exactly.
It's like,
I know that
she's unafraid to be honest.
She will be brutally honest. And I just saw her little chat come up and she said, yes, it's true.
Okay, well, that's good. You're actually lucky to have an honest critic.
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
So before we wrap up, I just wanted to read a couple of thoughts from some of your readers, if I can just find them here. I loved Helter Shelter. It's about frustration, extreme personalities, tragedy, seeking help, love, and triumph. Niki Smart has written an energetic and questioning book that is engaging and insightful. Even though situations seem hopeless at times, in the end, self-reflection and the courage to honestly analyze does change the direction of your life. And then Christine says, yeah, as the reader, I've been encouraged to do the same. So that must be quite rewarding to know that you kind of are reaching out to people. Yeah. And then someone else says, got my book in the mail as I was leaving for the laundromat. Never have I wanted my clothes to take longer than when reading your book. So that's great. So Niki, this third book you're doing is more introspective than your other two books. It's kind of sounds like you're delving quite deep into yourself and trying to figure out who you are and why you are. Do you have a title for your book yet? Because both of your books have got very nice resonant titles.
I was going to call it Full of Shit, but that title's already taken. I don't know. I don't know yet. I don't quite know what it's going to be called yet. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're almost done. I just wanted to ask you finally, we opened by talking about South Africa. Do you ever come back here and is there anything that you really, really miss about South Africa that kind of makes you feel a bit of an aching in the heart?
We really miss those fantastic summer thunderstorms. There's something so magical in the air, that like electrical, and it just is so exciting. And yeah, I miss that. Yeah. And I think I miss, that in South Africa, there's that sort of, what's it called when you just wear many hats? The Abul Makaplan. Like that's, yes. I love that because that's kind of missing here. They don't, everything's sort of a speciality. You have to go to the one person. I like the sort of, I can take care of it myself because I know how to, whatever. It's the independence. I don't know what it is, but I think it's because South Africa was in isolation for a while. We just had to learn to do everything ourselves. And I kind of admire that. Yeah. Anyway, can I just say thank you so much to you, Gus, for being here and for asking all these lovely questions. And even in the dark with no power. And then I also really want to thank Stephen. I don't know where he's gone. And I really want to thank Bronwyn for putting this all together. And then I want to thank everyone that came and joined. Thank you so much for all your support. And it means so much to me. And I just love you all. Yay. And I don't really know how we're ending this, but I thought maybe Stephen was going to do a magic trick. I don't know if he's still here.
Am I on?
Oh, there you are.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to do a magic trick. I'm going to disappear. It's going to be a really good one. They just laid that on me, so I haven't prepared anything. So I'm not going to. Okay. But I was going to show Gus our cat, because we have a great cat who sat on the keyboard, and but I can't find him. He's hiding somewhere. So Gus, I'll send you a photo. You've seen a lot of photos. But anyway, thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
For my first Zoom co-host, what a great experience. It was a lot of fun. Gus, good job. Niki, great job.
Thank
you. Go out and buy our book, both books. And thanks everybody for coming in. Those in South Africa, I hope you rejoin. Of course, you missed my great opening. But I hope you all have electricity now and enjoy it. Thanks, Niki. Thanks, Gus. Bye, everybody.